but I'm suspicious that it's 70% of people that camp have never camped outside of a campground. And I just think that's such a shame. That's what I want to talk about today, is why you should think about camping somewhere other than a campground. Today, I want to talk about the thing that I didn't finish the other day. I wanted to talk about motorcycle camping, and this could apply to any kind of camping, bicycle camping, motorcycle camping, car camping, hiking, whatever. So many people, and I don't think it's necessarily hikers know about this, because if you hike any distance at all, I think most people are hiking in public land. So if you're hiking any distance at all, if you had to hike all the way to a campground to be able to camp, your life would suck, because there's not a campground every 15 miles in the forest. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked that the Forest Service wants you to camp in campgrounds. They don't want you camping in the middle of nowhere. They don't want you camping in the woods. So they make shelters and they make, campgrounds to provide access to people who are camping, the hikers. But I'm sure there's some logic behind it. I'm sure that, it's probably impact related. The more people that are camping outside a campground, the more whatever. But the purpose of this talk today, and I've said this before in other videos, the purpose of this topic today is to let people know that you have options. And the options are wonderful. The options are truly wonderful. Camping outside of a campground is fantastic. I think the public campgrounds, for the most part, public campgrounds are nice. They're well kept. They're the federal government, the state governments, local governments have put effort into maintaining these things. For the most part, I've been to some pretty crappy state campgrounds, but honestly, the worst campgrounds I've ever stayed in were like KOA, those private campgrounds, and they've got some good ones too. I don't want to disparage all private campgrounds, but I've been to some pretty horrible ones, and they're all like 2 or 3 times as expensive as a public campground. And by public, I mean a government entity is running it. So yeah, why would you want to spend 2 or 3 times as much to go to a KOA or some crappy hole in the wall like that, if you could go to a public campground? Number one. Number two, I'm making a list here as I go. Number two, there is so much better camping outside campgrounds, and maybe I should make a subcategory under this. There are several things that you get camping outside of a campground. Number one, you get the freedom to camp, in places that you want to camp, rather than pick spot number 1, 2, or 3, or 4, and then sign here and put money in the pouch, or go talk to somebody in the office, and go over here and camp next to the rowdy kids and the drunks and the dogs, barking dogs, screaming kids, and drunks listening to loud music. That's what I always think of when I think of campgrounds, which is why I'm not a big fan of campgrounds. But not just that, the spots. I've been to some really nice campgrounds with some really nice scenic backdrops, and you've got a lot of advantages when you go to a campground. Typically, you'll at least have a toilet, if nothing else but a vault toilet, maybe some toilet paper. So you got advantages. A lot of them have water, Some of them have showers. Some of them even have hot showers. The paid campgrounds, a lot of those have Wi-Fi. Almost always it's crappy Wi-Fi, but you know, there's advantages to campgrounds. But most people, well, I don't want to say most people, but I'm suspicious that it's 70% of people that camp have never camped outside of a campground. And I just think that's such a shame. That's what I want to talk about today, is why you should think about camping somewhere other than a campground. And it doesn't have to be extreme like my kind of camping. You know, I love stealth camping. I'll stealth camp just about anywhere. I tend to not camp on private property if I can avoid it, because you know, I wouldn't want somebody camping in my yard. So, or you know, even the back 40 of my 1,000-acre farm, ranch, whatever. I mean, you know, it's kind of, I get it. I'm not completely oblivious to the fact that people don't want me trespassing. But sometimes it's like, you know, nobody's ever going to know I'm here. I'm not going to do any damage. And even if somebody catches me, which I have been caught, in fact, I got caught recently. I will put that link up here. You can check out everything was fine. Everything was fine because you know, it's a dang farm, and you know, I guess he caught me before I actually put my tent up, so everything was fine. And he let me camp there. He even brought me coffee the next morning, so you should check that video out. It's kind of an interesting perspective. But to continue on my stream of consciousness topic, there's so many things that you can gain from camping outside of a campground. Most of the time, people call this dispersed camping, wild camping, free camping, boondocking. There's all kinds of words to describe this kind of camping, but it's basically camping without resources. Camping in the woods like your grandfather did 100 years ago, or your great-grandfather did. It's the way people have survived throughout humanity. You know, up until the last 50 years when campgrounds started being a thing, you know, people just went out in the woods and they just plopped on the side of the road and, you know, or they hiked out into the woods, you know. How many times do you think Teddy Roosevelt camped in a campground? That should be the topic of this video. How many times did Teddy Roosevelt camp in a campground? I bet 0 is the answer. 0. Teddy Roosevelt camped 0 times in a campground because he was out in the middle of the woods. Number one, there were no developed campgrounds back then because that's such a bizarre idea. You're charging somebody money every night to sleep on the ground? That is just bizarre. So where did this whole campground concept come from? Yeah, I probably should have thought of that before. Where did this whole campground concept come from? I'm going to have to do the research now. So at some point, somebody said, well, you know, I could build a hotel and charge somebody $35 a night. Okay, this is back a while back. This is maybe back 30 years ago. You could probably get a hotel room for $35 a night. I'm going to build a hotel that requires not only lots of real estate, typically expensive real estate, but permits and building costs and all that stuff. Or I could just knock down a few trees and plant some grass and put some posts down and say, here's spot number 1, here's spot number 2, and charge them $35 a night, which is about what they charge now, or more, for you to throw your tent out on the ground. It's criminal, I tell you, criminal. So Teddy Roosevelt was an outdoorsman. He spent a lot of his youth outdoors. He spent a lot of his adulthood outdoors. Even while he was president, I'm pretty sure he made several trips out to where the places that I love to explore. But the question is, how many nights did Teddy Roosevelt spend in a campground? How many nights did he spend camping in a campground? If you can answer that question,